a.m. and 10 p.m. daily. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio
94.9 FM.
Dakar, Senegal.
However, if they do it disproportionately, they will protest.
It's you speaking.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Praia. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Senegal's President Diomaye Faye to lead a national dialogue on judicial reforms later next week as his government recalls 70 diplomats abroad. Benin's Patrice Talon signs several agreements including defense and maritime security with Brasilia. Liberia's government issues an executive order to provide temporary relief to rubber farmers affected by the recent moratorium, and in Nigeria, Governor of Kano State reinstates Muhammadu Sanusi II as the Emir of Kano 4 years after his dethronement by the former governor.
With full support of the kingmakers, I have approved the reappointment of Malam Sanusi Lami.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone. Senegal will hold a national dialogue on May 28, 2024 at the Abdou Diouf International Conference Center to be chaired by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye. This national consultation aims to bring together stakeholders to discuss the reform and modernization of the justice system. Auguste Collier has the following report.
The main objective of this dialogue, which will involve key stakeholders in the country, is to thoroughly examine the strengths and weaknesses of the judicial system. Participants will identify institutional mechanisms that need improvement and develop a roadmap for implementing the resulting recommendations. Senegal aspires to establish a better regulator system of deprivation of liberty. Discussions will also focus on setting up a legislative and institutional framework to expedite judicial procedures. The topics will include the status of magistrates, the organization and functioning of the Higher Council of the Judiciary, the digitalization of public justice services, and the duration of criminal proceedings. Additionally, the dialogue will address the criminal sanction regime, detention conditions, preparation for the social reintegration of detainees, and the overall regime of deprivation of liberty. To ensure the success of this dialogue, specialized working groups will be established for reform and modernization. Participants will include representatives from the National Assembly, the Constitutional Council, the Supreme Court, the courts and tribunals, the Ministry of the Interior, justice professionals and academics, civil society actors, the media, customary and religious authorities, and independent personalities. The conclusions of the 5-day consultations will be presented to the President of Senegal on June 4, following the dialogue's commencement on May 28.
Augustine Collier with that report. Meanwhile, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye's led administration continues on its promise to deliver, improve services and revamp the public sector, which this time entails recalling Senegal's diplomats abroad. This information was disclosed Thursday by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ogebirika reports that more than 50 diplomats, including vice consuls, economic office heads, and secretaries, are expected back in the country by July.
The Senegalese Minister of Foreign Affairs in a statement revealed that at least 70 Senegalese diplomats serving abroad have received the notification. The agents affected by the recall measure are the vice consuls, economic office heads, secretaries, and embassy attaché. According to the ministry, the envoys are scheduled to begin returning to Senegal in July, giving them enough time to prepare. The current government has also announced plans to ease and provide comfort to the affected diplomats and their families, such as travel arrangement. The Senegalese Foreign Affairs Ministry asked those concerned to communicate the composition of their respective families. Indeed, the state has undertaken to bear the cost of plane tickets for the agents' families, with provision for 5 children per diplomat as well as a baggage package. At the moment, there is no stated reason for the recall of the 70 diplomats.
Ogebirika reporting. And now to the Sahel, the Burkinabe President Ibrahim Traoré has announced a massive project to revitalize the FASO's education sector. The project, which he says is one of a kind, will kick off in the coming days. According to Captain Traoré, modern schools will be built across the country, while existing universities will have additional lecture halls and theaters. Traoré hopes to improve the education sector, thereby building a strong human resource pool for the country in the years to come. The junta leader's ambitious project comes in the context of insecurity attributed to insurgents that have caused both human and material damage. Hundreds of thousands of school children in Burkina Faso remain out of school classrooms due to school closures.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Remember, we are live on YouTube and Facebook at WADR. Far away from the continent, Benin's President Patrice Talon, who is on a state and working visit to Brazil, has signed several agreements with Brasilia to improve relations between the two countries. Talon arrived in the South American country on Thursday at the invitation of his Brazilian counterpart, Luis Lula da Silva. Francis Boniface provides details in this report.
During the discussions, several already existing agreements between Porto Novo and Brasilia were retained, with plans to strengthen cooperative links in various areas. These include economics, education, infrastructure, construction, and agriculture. In the agricultural sector, Talon and Lula da Silva agreed to implement a cooperation supported by Brazilian Cooperation Agency, ABC. In addition, many other areas of cooperation have been identified, such as the improvement of seeds, the mechanization of agricultural practices, and support for technical education for agricultural schools. Others are the development of a technical assistance and rural extension system, rural vocational training and agro-industrial training, the strengthening of fish farming, the promotion of market gardening, and modern production methods. Benin, faced with growing security threats in its extreme northern border near Burkina Faso and Niger, is seeking partnership with Brasilia in the defense and maritime security field. President Patrice Talon also expressed the will to explore cooperation in hydrocarbons and energy, sustainable development, and air transport. The Beninese leader is expected back in the country this week.
Francis Boniface with that report. Now, the Gambia's President Adama Barrow has approved for Banjul to file a reply brief to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, in The Hague. The reply brief is related to its case before the ICJ against Myanmar for the Rohingya genocide. In February 2022, the court rejected Myanmar's preliminary objections to the case brought by the Gambia, allowing the case to proceed to the merit phase. The Gambia is arguing that Myanmar violated the Genocide Convention through its treatment of the Rohingya minority. From Banjul, Sankle Janko reports.
In its reply, the Gambia addressed Myanmar's denial of committing genocide. The tiny West African country further emphasized to the court the substantial volume of reliable and credible evidence confirming that Myanmar is responsible for acts of genocide against the Rohingya group in Myanmar. The Gambian authorities also claimed that the situation in Rakhine State appeared to have deteriorated significantly, raising the prospect of renewed atrocity crimes against innocent civilians. Against this backdrop, the Gambia expressed deep concern over reports of violence and destruction in northern Rakhine State. The Gambia also stated that it was alarmed by recent reports regarding the forced conscription of Rohingya civilians and efforts by the Myanmar military to stoke intercommunal tensions and violence between Rohingya and Rakhine people. The Gambia called on all actors to protect civilians, allow for unhindered access to humanitarian assistance, abide by obligations under international human rights and humanitarian law, and hold accountable those who violate international law. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankule Janko reporting from Banjul.
Away from the Gambia, Governor Abba Yusuf of Kano State in northwestern Nigeria has reinstated Muhammadu Sanusi II as the Emir of Kano 4 years after his dethronement by the former state governor Abdullahi Ganduje. The move comes after the Kano State House of Assembly passed a bill dissolving the 5 emirates created by Ganduje in 2019. WADR's Usman Umar in Abuja has more.
Muhammadu Sanusi, a former governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, was deposed in 2020 after a disagreement with former Kano State Governor Abdullahi Ganduje over the state's finances. 4 years later, Governor Yusuf signed the Kano State Emirate Council Repeal Bill 2024 into law. The governor, who announced the reappointment of Sanusi, said the decision had the full backing of the 4 kingmakers of the Emirate Council.
With full support of the kingmakers, I have approved the reappointment of Malang Sanusi Lami popularly known as Muhammadu Sanusi II, as the new Emir of Kano.
The new law reverses the 2019 amendment that split the Kano Emirate into 5 and restores the Emirate to its original pre-2019 status. The law voids all appointments made under the 2019 law, and the emirs of the dissolved Emirates have been given 48 hours to vacate their palaces. Indigents of Kano Emirate have been speaking on the development.
When it actually happened in 2020, I actually predicted him coming back, but a lot of people were like, it won't happen. And as time went by, I saw it as an embarrassment to the throne and to the Emirate Council, to Kano Emirate Council at large.
I'm extremely happy today. As per the stability of Kano State, nothing is going to happen. This was done to Sanusi and nothing happened. And what is done today, nothing will happen, inshallah. Kano will remain Kano.
Sanusi II's reinstatement is seen as a reversal of what many say was politically motivated decision by Ganduje, which was widely criticized. The move is expected to bring stability to the Kano Emirate and address the concerns of those who opposed the creation of the new emirate. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
And just before the break, let's take you to Liberia, where the government has issued an executive order to provide temporary relief to rubber farmers and businesses affected by the recent moratorium on the exportation of unprocessed natural rubber. This extension aims to address the economic hardships caused by the sudden enforcement of the ban and to facilitate a smoother transition towards regulatory compliance. Nadia Titi completes the story.
The president of Liberia, Joseph Boakai, has issued Executive Order number 132, amending Executive Order number 124, which placed a moratorium on the exportation of unprocessed natural rubber. The new executive order extends the moratorium period by an additional 60 days, providing the much-needed reprieve to local rubber farmers and businesses. The initial moratorium, enacted on November 23, 2023, aimed to protect the rubber industry while the government developed appropriate policies and frameworks to ensure long-term sustainability, increased production, and job opportunities. However, the abrupt enforcement of the ban led to significant economic losses for many producers who had already prepared shipment for export. In light of these challenges, the extension allows rubber farmers to export their unprocessed products that were ready before the initial ban, thus mitigating further financial strain. Additionally, stakeholders in the rubber sector have agreed to develop a competitive fair pricing mechanism to govern the sale of unprocessed rubber, addressing concerns about local producers being forced to sell at low prices. The executive order mandates that all custom officers and law enforcement authorities at entry and exit points facilitates the exportation of these consignments during the 60-day period. Following this extension, the original moratorium conditions will resume, halting all export activities relating to unprocessed natural rubber. This executive order takes immediate effect and will be reviewed upon completion of the extended period to assess the progress.
Nadir Tete with that report. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal, and online at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Senegal's President Diomaye Faye to lead a national dialogue on judicial reforms later next week as his government recalls 70 diplomats abroad. Benin's Patrice Talon signs several agreements, including defense and maritime security with Brasilia. In Nigeria, Governor of Kano State reinstates Muhammadu Sanusi II as the Emir of Kano 4 years after his dethronement by the former governor. Liberia's government issues executive order to provide temporary relief to rubber farmers affected by the recent moratorium. Ahead in the news, we have the guest interview and sports update. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Many thanks for staying with us. Economist and lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Lord Mensah, has criticized the excessive politicization of the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, the entity that manages pensions of workers in the country. According to him, the situation has culminated in the mismanagement of the trust. His comments come in the wake of the trust to sell 60% of its majority stake in 4 hotels to Minister of Agriculture and MP for Agbetifi, Brian Achempon's Rock City Hotel Limited. Professor Mensah argues the failure to appoint persons with the requisite expertise in the field is costing contributors of SNTT loss.
I think SNET has been overly politicized, and the exposure to political risk is very, very high. I mean, I always say, and if you follow me on social media, I've been tweeting this every now and then. And I think if you have an investment fund, especially pension fund, that the management is overly politicized, it turns out to be problematic. Because the way and manner deputy directors, deputy managers, and all those are appointed is even problematic. You can pick anybody anywhere and dump the person onto the fund, which at the end of the day, decisions, right, can go wrong when it comes to, management. So from where I see, that's why I started my submission by saying we may have to look at how, directors are appointed. It shouldn't be directly from the executive, even though they're acting on behalf of contributors, but they may not act in the interest of contributors. Let's tie management to their contributions. So, you may have to spend some time contributing to the fund for your interest to grow before we can place you as, a director.
That was Professor Lord Mensah, an economist and lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. The funeral of former President Henri Konan Bédié continues in Côte d'Ivoire. It began on Sunday, and yesterday, Thursday, the body was laid in state at the St. Paul Cathedral in the Plateau district of Abidjan. The Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara and several other dignitaries of the country were present. Today, Friday, the Republic will pay tribute to Henri Konan Bédié. Echia Tisu reports.
The entire Ivorian state apparatus has paid respects to the memory of former head of state Henri Konan Bédié. President Alassane Ouattara and his wife, Vice President Thierry Moko Meilier, National Assembly Speaker Adama Big Togo, Prime Minister Robert Begré Mambe, and members of the government all attended. Former Vice President Kablan Duncan, former Prime Minister Patrick Achi, and former First Lady Simone Gbagbo were also present. Ivorian Prime Minister Robert Begre Mambe praised the memory of a statesman who worked for peace in Côte d'Ivoire. Tributes to Henry Konan Bédié from the Republic will continue today. He will receive military honors at the presidency, followed by tributes at the National Assembly. Tomorrow, Saturday, members and supporters of his political party, the PDCI, will pay their final respects at a ceremony held at the party headquarters in Abidjan. The body of the former president will then be transferred the following Sunday to Douakro, his hometown in the east of Côte d'Ivoire. After religious and traditional vigils, Henry Konan Bédié will be buried on June 1 in a private family ceremony in his village of Pepresu. Henry Konan Bédié, the former Ivorian president, passed away on August 1, 2023 in Abidjan at the age of 89.
HR Tisu with that report.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, the guest interview this afternoon takes us back to our very first story about the national dialogue to be held next week and to be chaired by President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, which seeks to provide reforms to the judicial sector. Well, speaking to WADR, Professor Gorky Jen analyzes this dialogue and the future it holds for the country.
As an observer of what's going on in Senegal and in Africa, and being probably also a political analyst, I have my opinion about the issue. Well, many critics, many criticisms have been leveled against the system in Senegal. But I really cannot go further because it is difficult to say whether the criticisms are really based on reality or not. Because most of the time, those who are in the opposition parties, they criticize all decisions taken by the judiciary. And when they become the leaders, they take another position. They assume another position. In any case, there must be some reforms because many believe that the decisions that are made by the judiciary are biased.
And so which areas do you think really need these reforms?
Many people, most of those criticizing the system believe that the president and the Minister of Justice shouldn't be members of the Higher Council of the Judiciary. This is the main focus. I have my idea, my opinion about this, because I don't believe that the president and the Minister of Justice not being members of the High Council of the Judiciary, that would sort out anything. And I can even say that can be dangerous, because if the President of the Republic, who is the custodian of the Constitution, is put away from what is going on, if there is problem, if there are problems between the judges, who is going to sort this out? So this is a question really we have got to handle very carefully, because rejecting the presence of the president at the Higher Council of the Judiciary, I think it's very risky.
You think that if care is not taken regarding what reforms are introduced and implemented, it may really backfire and actually affect the states more?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because there must be somebody there controlling everything. And the President of the Republic is elected for that. He is elected to help the country be on the right path, on the right track.
How paramount do you think this is as Senegal counts down to May 28 to begin this national dialogue to reform the justice system?
Well, I mean, when you want to reform, I think you've got to rely on the reliable people, that is the competent people in this matter. And I believe that all those who intervene in the system must be invited. The judges.
Professor Gorky Jan is a Senegalese political analyst. Well, let's join Sankule Janko for sports update.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Ghana's Black Starlets will face Burkina Faso in the semi-finals of the Wadr Zone B on the 17th AFCON qualifiers on Saturday, with it placed at the 2024 on the 17th Africa Cup of Nations also up for grabs for the winners. This comes after the final Group B matches were played on Thursday, with victories for Nigeria and Burkina Faso, who progressed to the last four. Burkina Faso overcame Nigeria 1-0, courtesy of Latif's Junior Jabi's first half strike to advance, having earlier drawn 0-0 with the Golden Eaglets of Nigeria in the previous group match. Nigeria, meanwhile, will take on Cote d'Ivoire in the other semi-final match after topping their section by seeing of Togo 3-0 in their final group game, with Abdul Muniz Adeleke netting a brace and Rafa Adams scoring the order, according to Cavavisa website. Meanwhile, host Ghana sealed top spot in Group A with victories over Cote d'Ivoire 5-1 and Benin 2-0 to book their last four meeting with the Young Stallions, who finished runners-up in Group B behind Nigeria. The Black Starlets, who are aiming to win the regional championship on home soil, no victory at the University of Ghana Stadium, will seal a return to the Under-17 Nations Cup for the first time since 2017. Ghana were semi-finalists 2 years ago, but missed out on the last edition after an early exit. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And that's how we wrap up this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Krista Mukidi and Maojo Juvu for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms: X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, on Facebook, WADR English Service, and stream live on WADR.org. Or better still, visit Google Play Store today to download our mobile application, WADR Live. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via